consistent exposure to something would naturally predispose you to do it better than other people. We got an offer from somebody to say, we like what you're building, we want to invest. So it's quite strange, like, really? I can count about maybe twice or thrice that Technext should have died out tracking. Make a choice. Do you want us to keep going when everything runs out, we fire everybody, or you go for 50% of the salary? But one unfair advantage that I had from growing up is my exposure to media. It was quite unusual for my age. I applied for a couple of jobs for 4 months, then I got CWG. I had a direct relationship with the CEO then, Mr. Austin McCary.
How have you maintained the relationship to keep Technext alive?
A lesson for people who want to go into co-founding situationships. The best thing to do is to share the meat before you kill it. You and I are going to hunt for an antelope. We should decide before going into the forest who's going to take the leg, who's going to take the head if the antelope is killed. Yes, AI will come, something bigger than AI will come, but that practice of journalism would not cease. I have 10 years PhD in entrepreneurship. I've built a company, understand hiring process, create strategy and vision, I've communicated it, I've done culture, I've invested, paid salaries, paid taxes, engaged stakeholders, I've organized events. You can do anything that you set your mind to do. So the adoption graph when it comes to startup, typically most people who create companies die at that early adoption. So overall, you want to start your own company, there are 4 key areas that you really have to be knowledgeable about. If you are not knowledgeable about, find people who can help you in them. The first is
I usually love beginning stories. Most times while we are children, a lot of experiences usually shape who we become. Sometimes what we won't decide to study in school and what we are doing currently. So I'd love to know what was growing up like for you, and were there certain experiences that must have shaped you to who you are today?
So I've experienced different parts of Nigeria by the virtue of birth, where I've lived. And so first of all, my parents lived in Niger State. There's a town called Bida. That's like the predominant towns for the people called Nupes in Nigeria. So when people tell you they are from the north, people automatically assume that everyone from the north speaks Hausa.
Yeah.
So this town, including Bida, Mina, the capital of Niger State, they speak mostly Nupe. So I have a bit of understanding of the Nupe language. So growing up was in the north, and I had a different experience from what I had in Lagos. So the north is a very vast place. People are a bit more religious. So you are exposed to a bit of morality, but also some bit of poverty, dustiness. My parents were not the poor people, but I lived in a poor environment. I went to school in a place where teachers weren't speaking good English to teach us the subject and all. But so one of my aunts came to live with us. She was going to the Polytechnic in the town, and she'd observed that I speak quite well despite the environment. I was a bit of a bright child, so she suggested that I go live with the family in Lagos, and that was how I came to Lagos for my JS1. So beginning from JS1, I moved to Lagos at 11.
Without your parents or with?
Without my parents. Wow. I say that was like the last time I lived with my parents. Wow. So I lived with this family in Lagos, and it was a quite different experience. So I remember the first time my guardian took me to Ojodu Grammar School. That was in school then before Basafowa was built. And so when I entered, I saw the gully, erosion affected land, the field. The school was vast, but it was a bit dilapidated. I felt somehow, but well, it's Lagos, so let's hear what the experience looks like. And so first 2 years, and going on, Millennium Secondary School was built, so we all saw the building built, and that really changed the secondary school experience for me. But one unfair advantage that I had from growing up is my exposure to media. It was quite unusual for my age. So when I was in primary school, I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Bature. He would ask us to watch the network news every night and ask us to summarize the news the next day. This was primary 5.
Just while still in Niger State?
Yes, while still in Niger State. So that was my first exposure to media. So I'll sit down every night with my dad, watch NTA News. So I knew the names of the speaker, Gali Nahaba, the Senate president, Mvanse Werem, the president. So I was like the best student in current affairs because I knew like every state capital. Mr. Bature would beat everybody but except for me. So I realized it was like a chore for most of my classmates, but I just had a
Felt natural
yeah,
to you.
it felt natural for me to watch the news and summarize. I just enjoyed doing it. So I was very good with current affairs. I remember that I had the highest score in common entrance in Niger State. So when I got to Lagos, I know there was a debate in my house, in the house where I lived, the family that I lived one day, about a certain president, Muammar Gaddafi. The argument was about which is the oldest president in Nigeria. So I said, this is Muammar Gaddafi. There is still another in Africa. There is still Yedema of Togo. There is the Biya of Cameroon. And everybody looked at me like, oh, this is guy. So, I mean, it was at that point, for a long time, I did not realize the effect of someone forcing me to watch the news. And the family that I lived with, the head of the family was a print master. Like, he worked with different newspapers from Concord that was owned by Abiola. We had someone work in The Nation, The Sun. So when you work in newspapers, they give you complimentary copies that you bring home. So because I had different members of the family working in printing press,
you had access
I had access to the paper. So I was always reading papers. So if you ask me anything about sport, about current affairs, about business, about news generally, I had an idea. I knew the best contributors in all of the newspapers, who the editor-in-chiefs are, cartoons and all of that. So that really exposed me to media. Then I was lucky. There's a bit of luck in every story. So while I was at school, the Lagos State government introduced International Press Week for the child. So they pick students from different schools to go to different media houses. So I was one of the people that was picked in SS1 to go to Radio Lagos. So I was in Radio Lagos. The first year, I was in the newsroom in a course. The second year, I was in Radio Lagos newsroom. So there was a bit of rotation. I did that from SS1 to SS3. So right there, I had an understanding of how newscasting worked. I had an understanding of the press. I had an understanding of the printing press and the radio and the television. So that kind of created like an interest. So I chose to be in art class, despite the fact that everyone thought I should read
Science.
Yeah. So I went to art class and my guardian thought I was going to study law. So it was quite disappointing when I said I wanted to do anything media related. It was like, you have the potential, so why are you doing this? And that was how the journey started. So that experience in itself predisposed me to liking the media. So each time I visit a media platform or I enter a newsroom, it feels natural to me. Like, I just love the talking, the writing, and the communicating part.
Yeah. That's like very, very interesting journey, right? And how like there was a further build up. First, your teacher had done more of the groundwork while you're in Niger State, getting you to summarize the news, and then you had a natural flair for it. Coming to Lagos again, that like was further built upon by the house where you stayed, and then the opportunities that you eventually had. But would you still say that you still had it sort of as a natural talent, or all of these exposures, whether from Niger State or to the house, the exposures to newspapers and all of that, and maybe your internship or times you spent at Eco FM or Radio Lagos, was that the thing that stimulated that interest in media to say, I want to do something or build a career in this line?
Yeah, to a large extent, that stimulated the interest. But there is also the bit of flair. So I just, by accident as well, I observed that I have the ability to engage in debates and win debates. So it first started like, we had an English teacher that was quite impressive when I was in SS1. I mean, everybody loved her. We enjoyed the class. And there was an announcement that there was going to be a debate competition. I could remember this was supposed to happen at Agidingbi Grammar School. I was in SS1. So they gathered, like, there was a debating club. There are some students that are typically represented by Swathowa in debates. So they were meeting at the library upstairs for that debate. So my teacher came to the class that day and asked people to read a comprehension passage. I was part of those that read, and she was like, oh, you and another lady follow me. So she just took us into the library and he said, okay, we are having a debate at Agidingbi Grammar School, and this is the topic. often I just want you to say whatever comes to mind without preparation, because we want to pick people based on voice, pitch, diction, and your ability to marshal points, either they make sense or no. So we just started talking, and for some weird reason, there was a lady in SS3. She was the head girl. Her name was Scholar. She was like the best speaker, so she was made the first speaker. And for some reason, the teachers decided that I was like the second best speaker. So I became the supported speaker. And so went to Agidingbi. Apparently, it was a competition at the zonal level. So we had about 12 schools. So we spoke. I remember when Scholar spoke. So Scholar is experienced at this. You know, she knew the gestures, how to use the time, stage management, face the panel of judges, and all of that. But I just came on, and I was very stage shy. I was apprehensive. I just something just clicked in my mind. I just do whatever you would do. What's this? You're not going to win. I just started talking. Quite frankly, I can't exactly say what I said I was different, but I just knew at the end of the speech, everybody in the hall rose up and started clapping. So we won that debate, and I went for a couple more debates for the school. I remember the one I went for in SSS2. We had a local government level, zonal level, state level. I won the Lagos State debate. I think I was given a prize by Otumba Femi Pedro, the deputy governor of Lagos. So I just realized I could speak, and that really helped me go into university. So I realized I had that flair for presentation. There's really, if I take my time to research a topic and present that topic to you,
what's a big
you will. Often when I speak, people would always either clap or comment my ability to share their ideas in a way that people can understand. So I realized that I have a natural advantage. So why go do something else when there is something I could do better?
Is there still a science around it? I'm sure there are parents that might get to watch this particular episode, or maybe even young people. Are there still practical things that they can do to improve, or how can they learn to present better?
So first, I think that having the ability to communicate seamlessly and efficiently is a survival skill, right? In this age and time where you need to work in corporate spaces, you need to interact with people, you need to lead people, even if you're well-to-do. Your ability to communicate what is in your mind lucidly and get people to buy into it and take certain actions is a skill that everyone needs to have. So I would say that for parents watching, if it is something that you can inculcate in your kids from growing up, either you help them by reading, by having open conversations in the home, encouraging them to engage in public speaking. Most people do that in church. So it's not just going to church to sing. Allow for children presentations, memory recitation. Those things would really help them, because there is really no field in this world. Even if you're a software engineer where you have to interact with systems, there will be times where you would have to present your ideas in a meeting before investors, manage other team members. And most importantly, if you are unable to communicate, it sort of naturally sells you short. So if your skill is worth X number of dollars, and there is someone else who cannot do as much as you do, but is able to describe his journey and present himself strategically, he would definitely earn more than you do. So communication isn't only for people who are going to make a trade-off communication. Either you want to be a comms person, a journalist, everybody needs to learn it. So making that as a background for my conversation to me, we all need to train our children how to communicate. But as for making it a career, I feel that really, and this is something I learned from a teacher, right? You can do anything that you set your mind to do. So if I wake up today and I want to be a medical doctor, if I read the right books, take my time, invest hours of study, I'm going to be a doctor. But I might not be able to etch my name in that industry if I just train to practice and survive. To be different from somebody whose flair is to be a doctor. I have worked in the media platform. I've worked at strategic communications for corporate organizations. I've done strategic consulting for individuals. Now I have a media company. And I've been through the best of times and the worst of times. But really, what has really kept me going to become like the best that I could be is because I'm passionate about it. This is something I can do without receiving a salary, and I would not feel bad. So for parents, yes, train your children in whatever they would love to. But it's important to identify what they have the natural anchors for, without really forcing them to do something because of money. Because at the end of the day, that thing is that will make them prominent and their names memorable.
There's usually common comparison of C.Ronaldo, Messi. Messi seems like someone that is naturally gifted, while C.Ronaldo seems like, he's pure.
I was trying to avoid that.
It's pure also pure work and all of that, right? Some people might be born with natural flair, which you talked about, right? But are there still certain things that just happen to be around that person that maybe created that natural gift or that ability, or is it something genetic, or is it just exposure?
I think it's a combination of factors. There is gene. I mean, Messi is short. He can run fast. Really, no matter how much you try, if you don't have that physique that Messi has, you might not be able to run and hold a ball to your feet for that long as Messi would. I have a friend she's a presenter. We call her Velvet Voice. If you listen to her voice over the phone, naturally you will fall in love with the voice. So some people have that gifted ability. Some have the baritone voice. Some have the sonorous voice. Some people know how to sing. It's natural. Yeah, so there is a genetic part of it. There is also the environment or acculturation, where consistent exposure to something would naturally predispose you to do it better than other people. So there are people who are born in families of lawyers. They've heard arguments all their life. They've read books. They'll naturally
know how to
argue better. Then there is also the experience of life. So some people are pushed to things because they really did not have choices. I've seen people who are like the best veterinary doctors, and they did not plan to study veterinary medicine in school. They couldn't just get the normal medicine, and they found themselves studying the veterinary medicine. But in all, I feel that the people who have the natural inclination to do things, or the gifted ability or the talent to do things, would naturally outshine the people who build the competence because of practice or environment.
I think something that people still need to sit with, right? And like just find where their best or their sweet spots will be, right? If you have the opportunity of having that natural talent, probably just go for it, work as hard as possible. And even if you think you don't have that natural flavor, wherever life has pushed you to, just put in the work and you can still do so much. 8 years ago, you founded Technext. Right, but before then, in between leaving OU and then founding with your co-founder, right, what was the journey like leading to you deciding that you want to also build a media platform yourself?
When I finished NYSC, I served in Radio Niger in Niger State. For some reason, NYSC said go back to Niger State. So I was quite conflicted. Should I work in a media platform? So I got to Lagos and I applied to a couple of media platforms, and strangely, I wasn't getting a call back. So I said, let me just try. So I was saying then, marketing comms or strategic comms was like a new thing. Social media, Facebook was started 2004. So this is 2011, 2012. It was still a nascent platform.
Yeah,
and so,
especially for us.
Yeah, but most departments have PR, public relations, where you send press releases to this day, Guardian, and all. So all of those openings were there. So I thought, let me just apply for one. Yeah, with time, I can always switch. So I applied for a couple of jobs for 4 months. Then I got CWG. So CWG was quite an interesting one because the company was looking for someone who had 2 years experience. I did not have 2 years experience. I finished NYSC for 4 months ago. I just applied. But in my CV, I listed that I had done, because while there was ASU strike, I did internship at Compass newspapers. I had worked in Radio Lagos. Even after school, I went back for a few things. I did 1 year at Radio Niger. So I felt those should count for at least 2-3 years of experience. So I listed it in my CV. I was called for an interview. There were older people in the room. But I did my interviews anyway. They asked me to write some things, press releases. I wrote all of that. And this is like natural for me. I even finished ahead of time. The people checking were like, "Are you really sure you're done?" So they asked me a question. And I remember that I put my certificate in between my NYSC magazine. I was the editor-in-chief of that magazine. So my articles were there. And one of the interviewers asked me what magazine. I told them I used this to keep my files because it was a raining Thursday. That was around March. So they collected the magazine, checked, and saw my articles. Oh, you wrote this. So the entire conversation in that interview process was about the articles I had written before. What was the process of editing, production, and all. That was what they were looking for. So I got a call up. I joined CWG, and I was there for 2 years. Within that time, because I was working in communications, I had a direct relationship with the CEO there, Mr. Austin McCary. My department was under the CEO's office. So it was a privileged position because you go to almost every event, you say things, you know people. It was like a natural flow for me. For me, it was like reporting news because I was following the CEO, I was taking pictures, I was writing stories, and I quite enjoyed it. And I remember there was a day we wanted to do an event, and I was asked to reach out to tech-specific platform. So I know there was IT Rems, there are very interesting. Most of those platforms then printed like newspaper type of publications. Mostly some were weekly, some were monthly. So I reached out to the editors of those platforms and they confirmed that they were going to come. Then something just told me to check online. So I checked tech production. I saw Tech Cabal and I reached out to other media platforms like Business Day and all, and I think I reached out to Tech Cabal then. Nobody responded. So it was sort of a feeling for me like, okay, when I looked at the content types for all the other media platforms at Tech Cabal was dynamic. The content was a bit different, speaks more to my generation, millennial Gen Z. But it also seemed like the coverage was just focused on the Yabacon kind of startups. Yeah. CWG is a tech company. It's a tech company. The product that they are launching is a fintech platform under CWG. And I feel that there should be a platform that would cover anybody that has any interesting thing to do in tech. And to be honest, at that time, it seemed like a very, very clear dichotomy between traditional media platforms and the new tech media platform. They only wrote about people who were in the CC hubs, people who had raised international funds. So it was more like the cool guys. But there is a founder in FUT Mina, there's a founder in Akure, there's a founder in Ibadan. Why are we just limiting our coverage
just Lagos,
to a certain class of people? So I made up my mind that at some point I would create a platform that can cater for the biggest of the big platforms, but would also give an opportunity to the student that is developing a cool app to tell their stories. And so that was the inspiration. So 2 years after that, I did a master's, so I left CWG, but I was still doing corporate comms. Then I worked in another company for another 2 years. At this time, while I was doing the master's, I created the Technext platform in 2017 with my friends, and we started just posting, funding it with our own money. But it was just an alternative platform to share stories. And looking at the back end, I realized a couple of people were reading. And the time we were invited for events, in-house events, launches, press events, and all of that. So it became a very serious thing. And not until 2018, then I was working full-time in another organization. Because remember, I was using my money and my friends' money to manage Technext. So I had to pick up a job that we got an offer from somebody to say, we like what you're building, we want to invest. So it's quite strange, like, really?
Yes.
Yeah, so we got an investment in dollars, and it became apparent that I cannot So for the sake of responsibility, it wouldn't make sense that somebody would trust me with their money.
And
to
then you
run
are
an
still
organization.
maybe
Because sometimes,
engaged with something
sometimes
else.
I don't even check out anything Technext if I have a very busy day. So let's say I have a presentation in the boardroom, I have some meetings, I won't remember anything Technext until the evening. So it didn't quite make sense. So I had a conversation with my CEO, and he quite agreed, and we had an arrangement. So I had to start up Technext. We had an office space, brought in a couple of writers physically, and that was how the journey started. Yeah, so it was launching into the deep, but with some resources, because at that point somebody had already given us cash, so it was easy to make a lot of trials, do a lot of events. We did a couple of events, and yeah, that was it.
And then you continued till this point in time, like very inspiring journey, especially for people that also think about starting out something, just like putting in your funds and growing it to the point that someone will see that they want to like invest in this. But then at those early days, maybe the early years, first year, second year, all right, I know that you had a niche, that you know that, okay, people that were undercovered wanted to tell their stories, but still there were other platforms. So how did you feel in terms of like competition? And as the maybe overall tech ecosystem began to get better, there were other companies too that were funded also. How did you manage those periods, staying true to your possibly calling or purpose to say this is what we want to do? How did you like manage competition? How did you still get the team to still believe that, okay, what we're doing, we can still stand out, people can still trust us more, we can still get more readers? How did you navigate those early years?
Yeah, so thinking about it, I think the biggest quality we possess that has made us survive for 8 years is adaptability, the ability to change. Because looking back now, from where we started in 2017 to now, the objective we had in 2017 is no longer the objective today. The objective was democratizing access, giving a platform to everyone to tell their story in a language that everyone can understand. But with time, even the bigger competitors would tinker their processes and their systems to make your unique offering just one of their features. So other platforms started covering ordinary people, as it were. So what is the reason that for Technext? What is the reason for existence? So I mean, one of the things we've done well from the first year we're going to start, we didn't just start like a platform and we started publishing. No, there were 3 founders, Anderson, Famous, and I. So Famous is like the tech guy. He's an IT guru, back end, front end. Anderson is like the money person. I am like the content person. So we sat down, we had a conversation, we brought in a lawyer to have an agreement. We created a business structure, had a business account. But beyond all of that, we sat in a room for an entire weekend and planned our trajectory for like 10 years. So I posted a picture on LinkedIn about a few months ago. So we wrote our objectives. These are the measures that we indicate that we've achieved those objectives. So going over time, every year we sit down to reevaluate our objectives versus our achievement. Then we tinker those objectives and fashion out what would be an answer to today's problem. Otherwise, we'll have gone out of business. I can count about maybe twice or thrice that Technext should have died outrightly. Maybe because somebody did something that was better and we were still caught in the past, or other founders took bolder initiatives, or we wanted to do something bold and we were a bit reckless. But the point is, that objective is no longer the objective today. So today we are trying to tell stories that matter in a way that, in a language that everyone can understand. At the initial stage, our objective was to give a platform for everyone to tell their story. But now we've gone beyond that point, because every story is important. But the manner of telling the story in the age of AI in the age of social media, where you have competing platforms that are also dishing out news.
Yeah.
It is not enough for you to just say what has happened, like the W's and the of newscasting. You need to now tell people what is evident but not visible. You need to tell them this has happened and this is what you should expect because of this, or this is how you can benefit from what is existing, or in 2 years' time, this is what we think will happen. But people would read, people will listen, but people could always make reference to your story, and that is what it has become today.
Well, you mentioned some of the toughest periods of Technext that could have gone on. Do you want to share maybe a particular one, and like how did you still figure things out to move out of that phase?
I think the first one was in 2020. So we decided that we were going to have an office space beginning from December 2019. We got an office space in Yaba. We spent millions of naira changing this landscape. Making it the kind of office we wanted it to be. By January, we resumed in the office. We had writers across, let's say across Western Nigeria, Ibadan, Lagos. Many of them migrated to Lagos and they started coming to the office. We gave everybody systems. We made a lot of investment in having a physical team. Then by March, April, COVID struck. So we had spent like 80% of our money investing in this. But at that point, having a physical office became useless. So that was the age of Zoom. That was the age of work from home. So for months, it became like we made a very stupid decision. But of course, when life gives you lemons, people say you make lemonade. So we did a couple of states. And one of those states that helped us at that time was, first, we had an honest conversation. So culture is very important for every business, for every startup. One of the culture that we have at Technext is we are very open with our numbers. You rarely have any member of my team that can't tell you, I can't give you a picture of the numbers. Okay, this is how much we have. This is how much we make. This is how much we need to make to survive. So we were very open with the team to say, this is our burn rate. This is the amount we have in bank. If we continue at this scale, you all are going to be out of job in X number of months. But if we are able to go 50% of our present salary and everybody works from home, even if we don't make 10 cents, we are still going to be alive for X number of amount. So make a choice. Do you want us to keep going when everything runs out, we fire everybody, or we go for 50% of the salary? And people voted for go for 50% of the salary. So that helped us. Then for the founders, because we had corporate experience, so Anderson was a statistics person with a telco company. I had comms experience. We started doing other things apart from the story writing on the back end to make some resources for Technext and also resources for ourselves, because it got to a point where we were in collecting salary. So that was a point where we took a very bold decision, and the bold decision nearly took us under. Yeah. There are other times where circumstances out of our control, like 2023, we had a lot of dollar obligations. Okay, so we're using Google G Suite. We have a lot of team members. So if a G Suite account is about $8, we are paying almost $1,000 monthly. Web hosting, Amazon, cloud storage, a couple of things. And dollar just moved from, subsidy is gone. Jagaban came in and dollar just moved from about 550 to, so it was crazy. So we had to also find alternatives that could cost us in naira. So we had to change from G Suite to other platforms. We also had to have the conversation again, guys. We have gotten to a point where we are not sure, because this is a new government. We are not exactly clear where they are going to. One of the first things we did was shut down the office, physical office. So don't come to the office, don't use tissue papers, we are not buying air fresheners, toiletries. that because we typically have biscuits and a light breakfast at the office, nobody should come to the office. So let's just cut out that cost entirely. Then the second thing is we looked for platforms that could charge us in an area. So instead of paying for a web hosting, in Cloudways, is there a Nigerian alternative? Instead of using Google, can we use Zoho? Exactly. So we had to eliminate all of that, and we also had to rearrange our remuneration system. So some things that, and the good thing about all of this is you would not find any trace of all of these decisions in the public. There are organizations where when people are owed salaries or when their salaries are reduced, you see people go on Twitter to rant and
drag their founders.
Yeah, exactly. Drag the founders. We don't have any of such because there is a prior communication that comes from that, and it's a culture to have that conversation, a well-detailed conversation, so you know what to expect. And as soon as things got better from 2024, it reflected in the way we treated everybody. In fact, some people got arrears of months. So there are people who, okay, so say your salary was 100,000 and you are receiving 25,000. And we had it in books that if we are able to get to a point where we can pay back, we'll pay you back your 75. So you assume that you are getting 75,000 for over 10 months at once. So those things happened. And so it was clear. It was good for everybody. So at that point, that particular near-death experience was as a result of something that we could not control. It wasn't like we took a rash decision or we're not bold enough, but the Nigeria happened to everybody. But somehow we survived it because we also know many other companies that shut down within that period.
Hi there, I know you're enjoying this episode, but we need you to do something. Please double check if you've subscribed to the channel. If you haven't, click on the subscribe button, like, share, and most importantly, leave a comment. Tell us what you found very insightful, very valuable from this episode so far, or by the time you complete the entire video. Please do that right now. That is one way that it can help us to continue to keep the lights on. Please do that. So you can get right back into the video.
I think that's like something quite a number of founders usually like struggle with, building that culture of like transparency where you're able to help I think for some people it seems as if I share too much, maybe they can decide to just leave anyhow, or they don't just want to be as open as possibly they should, because you mentioned how taking your people through the down times and when there are up times, so everybody know that this is what we are doing. So shock the current challenges we are facing, and when it starts to improve also, they all benefit. I think that's something that you mentioned, some of the results you had, people are able to like stay with you longer, and you don't have people like just pulling you down even in public that maybe you just took rash decisions, you guys were not using the money to buy stuff for yourself and then tell people that want to cut your salary, but they can see what the challenges were and taking them through the process. So having great co-founders in periods like this, especially the downtimes, is always very, very important. I also love to know how, maybe you had mentioned some of the key strengths of your co-founders, but how did you find them? And how did you maybe convince, who did the convincing to come together to start Technext? And then over the period working together, how have you managed the relationship? Because we've heard of companies that maybe one co-founder can just decide to do something or not believe in the vision any longer, and then the company will just go down, or co-founder splits, and once they split, the company goes down. How did you find yourselves, and how have you maintained the relationship to keep Technext alive?
Okay, so from what I've come to understand, changes are natural. As much as organizations change, people also change. And so when really, for me, this is personal, and I've written a lot of stories of startups shutting down because of co-founder issues. I don't get to see those people as bad people. I've just come to the point where I realized that people change. And so when people naturally lose focus or no longer believe in the vision, I think it's natural. It could just be a state of being at that particular moment. Maybe they are going through personal challenges that are very deep. So the first question you asked, so the cost trend I've explained, one person is numbers, the other person is tech and content. Definitely, because it's a content and communication media platform, it's built on my cost strengths. So technically, it would suggest that I did the convincing, I had the conversation. So it was first my idea, then I had the conversation with the numbers person, because numbers is a key component of the platform. Then it dawned on me that if it is going to be an online platform, then there is a need for somebody who understands how online structuring works. And that was how the third person got into the conversation. So in that order. And yes, having co-founders is actually a better experience than starting businesses alone. And really, I'm willing to have that argument anywhere, because there are days when even the best of the best founders would not feel like doing anything. We all have days of sorrow and weeping. Maybe it's personal challenges. You may write an exam and not pass. You may have a challenge with your wife or with your family. And those are not days when you want to do anything creative. But if there are two other people who are really thinking about the business, even on those days when you are taking your time out,
keep it going.
the business can keep going. So that's the benefit of having co-founders. Like every other co-founding situation, we have had our issues. There are days when either of the three have thought about pulling out, maybe because of arguments or because of decisions that do not favor people. But what has kept us going is the shared vision. Yeah, and this is what we want to do. And this is why we are doing it. But overall, and this is a lesson for people who want to go into co-founding situationships. That's the way I would describe it. The best thing to do is to share the meat before you kill it. So you and I are going to hunt for an antelope. We should decide before going into the forest who's going to take the leg, who's going to take the head, if the antelope is killed. So discuss roles and responsibilities. I'm bringing you into this co-founding situation because you are a tech person. I won't expect you to write stories or do interviews. You are just going to ensure that the site keeps running, is up to speed, and it competes with the best platforms across the world. So you're sure what the job is. And my job is to ensure that we write the best stories and get access to the best people. And like that, so you share responsibilities, but you also share rewards. So if you eventually will make $1 million, I'm going to take 40%, so you take 30%. So that conversation is very clear. So that tomorrow, when somebody comes to the table and say, oh, I'm offering you guys $10 million as funding, then that is where you see the demons in people. But if you've had that conversation and the conversation is written, signed by a lawyer, and you have your documents, your copy with you, my copy with me, when that decision comes, there is no deliberation. We all know that when we get to the point where we become rich, who takes what? So you need to have those conversations early, so that when you kill the animal, you will not kill each other over the animal.
That's like a very, very insightful way to put it, sincerely, right? And also, like, with your culture of transparency, so transparent with each other, and just that illustration of just sharing the meat before killing it goes along. We're not waiting until that big break, and then people start to feel that I think I've been working much more than this person.
Exactly.
Why should we take this certain percentage? But if we say that this is how we want to do it, it is to now move forward. Tech platforms, tech media platforms, they look very enticing outside, right? Maybe you guys are making so much money. So I'd love to know, how do you make money? You had mentioned maybe funding, right? But then is it from grants? Is it funding like this? Is it investment with expected returns?
So generally, as a media platform, there are diverse ways of making money. So this is me talking about what is obtainable globally, and what it should be. The first major method is through content access. So you write a good story, people want to read the story, they pay you to have access to the story. So that's where you talk about subscription, newsletter membership, access to pages, platforms. So there's a website you go to, it will allow you to read a few introduction.
See the complete article.
So you're paying for access to the content, Then the second way is eyeball sales, visibility. So I allow everybody to read my content for free. But in the process of reading, there are ads either by the side, in the middle, at the top, at the bottom. So I'm showing you other products that you can buy, and in exchange for your free access. Yeah. But in today's world, media have other forms of sales. Some people sell subscriptions to maybe lifestyle information. So if you use New York Times, there's also The Athletics that gives you sporting information, fitness. Because today is the world, fitness is one of the raving buzz ideas in 2026. I mean, so people want to have information about what is the new thing to do, what is the new cool way to dress to the gym. So there is Athletic that gives you this kind of information for a subscription fee. So apart from selling content access, visibility, you're also selling personal information, access to personal information. Now, media platforms also curate events. So you create access to communities and people. So we used to, until last year, we hold a conference, a blockchain event. On a typical day, we gather around 2,500 blockchain enthusiasts across Nigeria, across West Africa in a room to talk about blockchain, crypto, etc. Any brand that is playing in that space that wants to sell platforms, apps, solutions to blockchain practitioners or blockchain enthusiasts who want to be in that room for an access to that community. So that is why you see a lot of media platforms organize events. Because when you organize especially niche events, there are brands who want to sell to those niche audiences and they will want to get access to it. But you can also sell access to communities. So if I write content for a specific community, say I write articles that people who are in the VC investing space love to read, and I do a personalized newsletter for them, they all give me their email addresses. I have access to that specific people. And you want to maybe pitch to them or do something that would get their attention. You can say, David, organize a roundtable for VC investors, 100 people in a nice, cozy place in Magodo. They all come together. Then I come into the room and I sell the idea to them. So there is also that community access. So for us at Technext, we don't do content access because we did not try it, or we learned from the experience of. So I have friends that have spoken to other older platforms, and I know that Nigerians typically do not pay for subscriptions for content access. Talk about Netflix. As important as it is for people to pay to watch Netflix, you see Nigerians share, like 4 or 5 people share one subscription.
Figure out a way to download
exactly, download the movie on some other website and watch. If there is an opportunity to get the same thing somewhere for free, most Nigerians will not pay. So content access has not worked for platforms that have tried it, even established platforms in Nigeria. So we know that paywalling our content is not going to work. We have done a few events. We have done at least 3 major events and other minor ones. So we've provided access to communities and customers, physical access. We do a lot of ads on the site. So people come to the site, put ads, top banner ads, Google ads and all. Then we've also done other forms of content that people have paid for. So we've written special reports. We have newsletters that people subscribe, put their ads into those newsletters, and they run. So typically that's like our 3 major revenue streams. The first is event. The second is ads and visibility for platforms on our platform. Then the third one is specialized community access. So we do small events for people to. So we have Technext Convo, where we gather maybe stakeholders in a particular space into a room to talk about a certain topic, and people have access to it.
Thank you so much for sharing. At least people that might be interested, although I'm not sure, are there opportunities for media platforms to tell our stories maybe in Africa and not just Nigeria?
Media platforms are coming up every day. I believe the sky is big enough for everybody to fly, and there is always a better way to do something. I was reading a book where one of the authors from Stanford University was saying that from his research over 20 years, he has seen that the most successful players in market are not the early entrants, are not the first movers. Are typically late entrants or mid-early entrants. So look at Google. Google was not the first search engine platform. Facebook is not the first social media
Even
platform.
Apple, they're not the first.
Yes.
Ones.
TikTok is not the first video-dominated social media platform. But what starting later, the leverage that starting later gives you is you are able to observe the challenges and the mistakes of earlier platforms. So I just said that we did not do content access model because we've seen other platforms try it and they did not succeed. So that learning curve may have killed another media platform. Trying and seeing that Nigerians don't pay for subscription. You may have tried it for 5 years and you run out of cash and you die. There are very good platforms in Nigeria that have died. Yeah, but we did not have to try that curve because we came in later. So if somebody else is coming into the tech reporting space today, there are things that we have gone through or we've been through that person would not try at all. There is always an opportunity to tell the story in a better way.
Traditional journalism, we have previously newspapers, TV. Now, the current youth that we have now, even the millennials, even Gen Zs, are no more turning so much to like radio, are no more watching TV as much. Do you think that traditional journalism is dying? And then how should they also evolve, or how are you evolving?
So traditional journalism, it's very difficult to even put a finger to what that means. Because journalism is the art of knowing first and transmitting what you know to people. The mode of transmission is what is changing. That art of knowing first and transmitting or sharing is still is going to be forever. Yeah, because there is always a group of people that are passionate about knowing ahead of other people and sharing what they know with other people, and that is journalism. Yeah, it started from town criers to people who write script and scrolls, many of which has become our scriptures today. They share with other people what God has revealed to them. Then you've come to the age of television, where people sit in a studio and broadcast to the entire nation. And that was because television was the in thing. Every household had a television set. Then you moved on to radio. People could hear voices and not see visuals. And with the advent of cars, people could drive and still listen to radio. That was a mode that was built on the lifestyle. Then we had the era of mobiles, telephones. So people could carry on. At the onset of mobiles, the only thing mobile phones had then was radio. So it strengthened radio. Then visual came in. I knew that the early form of radio, some people tried integrating television with phones, some Chinese phones. Yes. So now you now have, because of the advent of mobile, internet, you now have social media platforms. So people consume content on social media platforms. What's the essence of my long story? Whatever the platform is, there is always the need for journalism. Okay, so even with the age of ChatGPT, if you ask a specific question, what is the outcome of the local government elections in FCT? ChatGPT will tell you, oh, the elections have been conducted in FCT. There are 6 local governments. These are the results. But ChatGPT did not generate that information. There was a journalist in Amak local government. There was a journalist in whatever other local government, Zuba local government, that had broadcasted that information either on the traditional platform
and posted it somewhere.
Exactly. So when ChatGPT gives you that output, that ChatGPT will often indicate the source at the bottom to say this information is from BBC, or it's from This Day, or it's from X, or it's from Facebook user, right? So people would always practice journalism. The mode of transmission is what is different. And if you really observe the media space in Nigeria today, even traditional media platforms, those ones that had existed before we were born, they are going with the trend. So I tell people, I mean, in classes that I've either attended or anchored, I will tell people that yes, AI will come, something bigger than AI will come, but that practice of journalism would not cease. But what you should do as a journalist is not to compete at the low level of journalism. Times will change. There's the people who don't change with time that are going to be left behind. So really, AI is not going to replace journalists. It's journalists who are smart that are going to use AI to dominate this world.
Let's say we take you back to 18 years old, right? Now that content creation, there are a lot of popular influencers, right? They have a lot of following. They are making a lot of money also. Would you still pursue a career in journalism, or just build yourself as a brand and monetize the attention you get?
If I'm given the opportunity, I'll go through this route again, because there is nothing as important as building experiences, as understanding processes, as having an opportunity to create experience, good times and bad times, work with people, meet people. Whatever I choose to do, let's say after 10 years of founding Technext, I've led Technext for 10 years. If I decide that at the stop of 10 years, I'm going to go into something else, say I want to start selling cars, the way I would do it will be different from an average person, because I have 10 years of post-university hands-on experience. I have 10 years PhD in entrepreneurship. I've built a company. I understand the hiring process. I create strategy and vision. I've communicated it. I've done culture. I've invested. I've paid salaries. I've paid taxes. I've engaged stakeholders. I've organized events. It's a vast array of experience. So typically when younger people come to ask me, oh, should I start a company or should I get a job? I often tell them to get a job. First, get a job for like 2-4 years. Understand how the corporate space works. What is the essence of structure? What is the essence of leadership? How do you write emails? How do you ensure visibility within an organized space? And typically, the people that you know from that corporate experience will be your launch pad when you want to start an idea. They will be the people that will give you feedback, the people that will try your product.
Some of your bosses might even be your first set of investors.
First investors, people that will reference you to other people to buy from you. So corporate experience is always good, and that's the same thing. I wouldn't advise anybody to just become popular without experiencing growth or having an understanding of process. Because what happens is once that popularity dies, you're unable to evolve yourself. That's the truth.
Yeah. In terms of building Technext too, right? Just want you to leave some tea or tips for our listeners. You shared how through your leadership together with your co-founders, you've been able to grow Technext. Think on some particular year or years, built the subscribers or views to around like 500,000 plus or 300,000 plus year.
Monthly, we have passed 1 million.
1 million now. Beautiful, right? And so leading through those process, are there things that you started doing, like trying to get the viewership or subscriptions or just views across platform to go from maybe what you started with around 3 years, 4 years to what you are now? Are there certain decisions that you did that like just shot up the numbers that helped that growth that other people can learn from and also implement?
Yeah, so generally, I think that the principles for creating a sustainable business are the same, are uniform across board, anywhere in the world, whatever the niche, whatever the business style. Because so if you don't follow these principles, you may have moments of shine, but you can't sustain it. Each time we've experienced growth, those growth have been incremental, and it gets to a point it becomes exponential. So if you understand the adoption graph when it comes to startup, there is always where you start, and early innovators or adopters will see you and they'll quickly adopt your ideas. Then you get to a point where there are early majority, where a few people will see that a few people are using that thing, and they will quickly jump on it. And you have about 30% of the total users on it. Then there is a late majority that will see that, oh, everybody is trying this thing, let me quickly try it. Then there is a few people that will not like your product no matter what you do, right? But once you have been able to capture like 70% of the market, you are good to go. Typically, most people who create companies die at that early adoption. I'm sure there are a lot of apps that you have downloaded on your phone, Nigerian apps, that after a few years, it's either not functional or there are too many challenges and you delete them.
Up to something.
But when those things, when they were first launched, they were like the biggest thing in town. Again, it's because that process, the founders have not really built that process that will keep those companies going. And if you look at the most successful startups in Nigeria today, the founders have worked in other established places. So there is always a learning curve. Either you learn it building your own company or you learn it working with someone else. So overall, I think there are about 4 things. So if you're watching the video and you want to start your own company, there are 4 key areas that you really have to be knowledgeable about. If you are not knowledgeable about, find people who can help you in them. The first is strategy. I can't emphasize this enough, but it is very important. You need to know where you're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years. You need to figure out the measures, the things that you will have achieved that would indicate to you that you have gotten to where you're going or how far you are from where you're going. You need to plan all of that out, how to deal with competition, how to collaborate, what is the extent of your coverage, which niche area, define your market. Those things are part of strategy. And many businesses fail in Nigeria because there is no strategic code to it. So today, the selling thing is rice. Tomorrow, it's beans. I've been tempted many times to become an influencer and jettison writing. But I stuck to it because there is a vision that needs to be complete. Yeah? So strategy is very important. And that strategy must include what will become of you when that business gets to a point that it no longer needs you. And that is where many old generation businesses in Nigeria die. David and Sons Limited. So when David dies, what happens to the company, right? Your strategy has to be end to end. Then the second thing is culture. So culture is like, someone defined culture as subtle agreed achievement. So they are tacit. You don't say it, but every organization has a culture. And the crazy thing about culture is if you don't define it, you define itself. Your culture could be, we respond to fire brigade approach. So it's only when things are getting bad, everybody
just go
run to it.
Try to solve it.
Culture in some organization is we all listen to what the boss says. Some organization is don't take risk. You take risk, you get fired. The culture in some places is respect and superiority. Nothing supersedes loyalty or superiority. Your culture could be corruption. Yeah. But the point is, as a founder, you need to intentionally define the culture. So you have your strategy, which is where you want to get to. Your culture is how the people in the organization achieve that strategy. Do you go through processes? Do you innovate? Do you try new ways? And it is your job as a founder to communicate that culture. People say that culture will eat strategy for breakfast anytime. It is true in Nigeria. You see organizations that have fantastic strategies, ideas, but they die on the altar of culture.
Not helping this
culture. Strategy. And you need to understand the Nigerian context and create a culture that would counter the inimical factors that being a Nigerian brings to you. Nigerians are naturally careless people. We don't seek excellence. Once something works fine enough, we move on to the next day. So if you're creating an organization and you want everybody to be excellent, you need to create a system where people focus on the little things and get things done. And after you have done culture, the next thing you work on is communication. How do you carry everybody along from the smallest person in the organization to the big? It's not just about tools. It's also about processes. It's also about a feedback system. Communicate with people. Once you have a strategy, you've designed the culture that will achieve it. You create a communication system. The last pillar, which is very important, is team, talent. Yeah. So for me, in my 8 years of running Technext, that is the most difficult thing to do in Nigeria.
Finding the right people.
In terms of abilities, in terms of attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, when we recruit, we always recruit on the basis of abilities and attitude. And to find Nigerians who have abilities is not as difficult as Nigerians who have the right attitude. Typically, once you figure out the strategy would cover for why you are here. And every day when you wake up, you always see a reason to keep running. You've covered culture, which gets everybody to work together irrespective of their capabilities. You've covered communication, a system that ensures that you keep oiling that, you keep reminding people why you need to do and what people need to do. And you figured out how to hire people who are smarter than you and who have a better attitude to achieve your strategy and culture. Every other thing will fix itself.
David just give us a mini masterclass. Thank you so much. Like, a very interesting and enlightening conversation so far. Strategy, culture, communication, talent, like very 4 key things that I think a founder can really get right, usually from the onset, can really determine how far and how successful they can become. For African tech in general or Nigeria, are there narratives that you think need to die like just immediately? And are there other ways that you think that we should tell our stories better?
Offhand, one thing that needs to die is the culture of validating entrepreneurs by how much they have raised.
Yeah.
I don't think raises should be the yardstick for determining success. And being at the vantage point where I've reported significant raises and I've seen startups died after raising money, I don't think raises should be a culture we should celebrate. It's really nothing, yeah? Because we have gotten to a point where people chase it for the sake of it and for many reasons that are not really beneficial to the growth of the company. So it's good to raise when you've gotten to the point of scale, but I don't think that not raising should be anything that we should. I mean, we celebrate people who have raised too much, and I think raising in itself should not be an end. We should celebrate people by impact. By impact. There are startups that have raised based on their impact, and you cannot deny one or the other. Say a startup like Money Point. I drive a lot across Nigeria. I've been to cities like in Ekiti, in Ilorin. We have seen people have built businesses based on using Money Point POSs. So if you talk about impact, Money Point has changed the way we transact in Nigeria. So if Money Point raises $100 million, it's understandable. It's scaling that capacity to more communities and do more, make more impact. But if you're starting a new startup and you're doing something that's a bit lofty in AI or in blockchain, and you're raising $10 million, at the end, again, back to what I've said, you've not gone through the process. You've not been through challenges. You've not created a structure. You've not created a culture within the organization. And you're getting a lot of funds. What it does is it covers a lot of pain points that you should fix. And eventually, when you're able to run because you have money and you don't fix those minor leakages, money sort of accentuates either positives or negatives. Whatever you have in the system, you run to debt faster. Yeah, and every startup has a learning curve. There are things about you as a founder that you need to overcome. And time often exposes those things and gives you the opportunity to overcome them. But when you have money, you sort of use cash to trade time, and you would not learn those things. So that's one thing that I really think that we really need to overcome in the ecosystem.
For young journalists that are just like starting or very early in their careers, what would be your advice for them? How would you recommend that they approach their career to grow and then to do a big and great impact?
So the first thing is passion. Be passionate. At the onset, like every other profession, journalism does not really pay very well. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like that for every profession, but journalism is almost more like teaching. So you need to be passionate. You need to be passionate about telling stories, at least for the first few years. But we have also gone beyond that area of poor journalism. Yeah, you can't tell good stories if you're hungry. And there are opportunities today, multiple opportunities than the journalists of many years ago had that you can leverage to become better. So seek them out and leverage on them. There are platforms that are offering fellowship, trainings. There are trainings that I did not enjoy, but there are also trainings that I enjoyed. I just finished the MTN MIP program, and there was a free opportunity that anybody can apply for. So as a journalist today, besides passion, after you've gone out to tell the story, come back home and search for opportunities. Go for programs every year, go for trainings, attend fellowship, meet people, and learn new things. Some of the things that we are scared of, AI and the rest, there are platforms that are teaching people how to tell better stories using those platforms. So you leverage those platforms. Don't be a practicing journalist in isolation. Yeah, meet people, have relationships, and just do the job. That is the first thing. Second thing is ethics. That is one major pitfall for journalists in Nigeria. If you are not careful, at the point where you start telling good stories, people will reach out to you with favors. You need to be very careful. You could actually become very rich being a journalist if people trust you, if people respect the quality of your work. Stay the process and get to that point. If I go to an event and you offer me things, I would, if it is a gift, say you're giving me a cup or a jotter, yeah, but say, oh, come and take 10,000 naira for transport. What that does inadvertently is when you give me a story, I don't have a choice than to publish it. And I've been to events, I've covered events where I don't write stories about it because I don't think they are newsworthy. Yeah, you should have that liberty to say, whatever happens, if I see a story about Joshua today, I will write it objectively without feeling the urge to kill that story because I owe you a favor. Okay, that is one of the banes of journalism in Nigeria. It's a rat race, and what happens to be part of a rat race is at the end of the day, even if you survive, if you get all of those bits and pieces and you build houses and send your children abroad, you're still a rat. People will not respect your trade. So we need to get journalism to the point where people respect journalists and journalists earn well. And we can't earn well when we are going about taking chicken change from the factories.
I want you to quickly touch on something. What do you think founders can do to maybe improve the relationship with like media people or press people? Founders, maybe when they have issues in their company, they are not always satisfied with how the press people report it. Press people are saying, this is what we saw. We are reporting it as we saw. Or they'll say that you did not reach out. Some will say they reached out, you did not answer, you did not answer within the time that we want. So how can that like relationship improve?
So it's not a question of relationship, in my opinion. It's a question of competence. I think the best founders in the world understand their limits. Okay? If I own a media platform today. If I leave that media platform and say I'm starting a fintech platform, one of the things that I would do earlier on is to employ a brand and communication specialist. Let people speak for you. So that you can focus on your primary objective, which is to build a solution. And if there comes a point in your journey where you need to speak to the media, your strategist would design the talking point, would design the topic, would give you keywords to use, things to say, and all of that. We see a lot of founders in the Nigerian tech ecosystem, and this is my personal opinion, who spend thousands of dollars hiring software developers, but for some weird reasons, they don't calculate the cost of brand damage into their strategic planning. The same way you go out to hire a software developer to build your solution should be the same importance you would assign to hiring a brand and comms specialist from day one. Somebody that will strategically position your conversation, somebody that journalists can easily ask questions. Someone that will preemptively
Before they even
push out information before they happen. You need to understand that even if you are a good speaker, if you have a fantastic social media profile, if you are a brand influencer on Twitter, it is not sufficient. There are days when you tweet and those tweets should be taken for what it is, in banter or just your personal
it doesn't
opinion.
misconstrued.
Exactly. So you need to hire a professional to help. When I was in CWJ, I worked with Mr. Austin Okere, who was the founder of the company. I worked in the comms team, and I knew the power of media. This was a company that was listed on the stock exchange in 2014 as the most valued ICT company on the bourse of the exchange. It was not by accident. There is a narrative that preceded that event, and there is a narrative that has existed till today. It is as a result of thoughtful planning. Mr. Okere is a good speaker. He's a good writer, but he understands the limitation of combining dysfunction with being a founder. So he employed a media team
Now focus
that
on that.
plans. We plan the media strategy, we PR, we take pictures from certain angles to reflect certain posture, we write his story in certain ways. There are articles that gets published that don't just get published. We infuse a couple of elements. We strategically respond to media queries and decide where it should be interviewed or not. So if a media founder that started his company in 1992 could think like that, I mean, a young founder that is starting in 2024 should not consider brands and content as a thing for later. Start from day one. If you cannot have somebody on your team, have a consultant on the side that can do that for you. And if you find founders that are really invested in this, you won't see them complaining on social media. So once I see a founder come on LinkedIn or Twitter to bash Technext or Tech Cabal for writing a story about them, just gives me a signal that this person is not.
Yeah.
He's not doing the right thing. Yeah, you need to invest in it. The same way you are investing in your legal, in your compliance. Don't wait until the CBN suspends you, then you go criticize CBN for not suspending you rightly. How about engaging CBN before taking some steps?
And I think it takes a lot of work, but then if you're intentional,
You have to
do
be
the right
intentional.
things at first, then you
have to be intentional.
save yourself. You worked in this space, had the opportunity of like shaping the narrative of like tech ecosystem both in Nigeria and in Africa. What responsibility actually comes with shaping how the world sees us, even as an ecosystem, both in Nigeria and in Africa?
The responsibility for me?
Yes.
Quite a lot. So there was a day I made a tweet about something, and it was just a regular tweet, and somebody came to my DM and said, "Oh, for a journalist of your pedigree," I can't forget that word. A journalist of a pedigree, I didn't expect you to say something like this. Instead of me to argue or explain that, oh, this is just my personal opinion, I had to apologize and right that wrong. And I've had people say, "Oh, David, we see on social media, you don't seem like the kind of person that likes basketballs." So one of the things that I've come to realize early on is if you are going to be considered an objective voice, you cannot afford to be subjective in some matters. If I'm a political journalist, I can't just jump online and start saying, "Oh, Palestine is right, Israel is wrong." If I have the burden of reporting a story tomorrow, and in that story, Israel happened to be right and Palestine is wrong, if I write that story as it were, or if I write a story and Israel is wrong and Palestine is right, because I've tweeted in the past for Palestine, people would assume that I'm just projecting my bias.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest burdens for us as narrative shapers is we lose our sense of individuality in the public space. I've been in rooms where people say, "Oh, this thing that I'm saying shouldn't be for the press." And I will just laugh, like, you are my guy. I'm just saying this thing in confidential, People don't just see you anymore as an individual. They see you as somebody who has a platform and who has a potential of either causing a damage or influencing a narrative about something. And that places the burden of being circumspect you can't just say things, you can't just tweet things, you can't just, because whatever you say should be good enough for people to make reference to or to believe.
Yeah. Finally, what future do you hope for maybe Nigerian tech, African tech, and what role do you hope that Technext to be playing, or you yourself personally will be playing in shaping that future?
So the future I envisage is a future where Nigerian tech builders create solutions for indigenous problems using indigenous resources, methods, and structures. What we have today is a significant reliance on foreign investment, on foreign platforms, support platforms, on foreign talent,
Foreign
on foreign
validation also.
processes and technology. We are not building replicas of foreign platforms or designing things to get international validations. We are building solutions. And that's why startups like Terra is exciting. Because they are building drones. They are building security infrastructure and systems for Nigeria and for African countries. And security is a significant problem in Africa. So if you can have an African company building security structures for Africa, there are going to be nuances or elements of those structures that are going to be unique to us because of our terrain, our climate, our people, and so on and so forth. So the fintech space in Nigeria has really done well. Yeah. But fintech cannot be the only spotlight ecosystem. There are many problems in Nigeria that require uniquely Nigerian solutions. And I'm looking forward to a future where founders are solving problems that ordinary people can feel. Problems that are changing the GDP numbers. Problems that, when solved, are changing how we are educated, how we receive healthcare, and a couple of other things. Not just things that we do on pitch decks and raise funds and get visas to other countries.
That will be a very, very beautiful future. I hope that we are all able to invest time in, invest resources in, and not just wait for, just as you mentioned, wait for external support or external validation or even investment, but we ourselves find these problems and do everything possible to solve them, especially based on the local context that we even have. Yeah, so in like fully wrapping up, is there something you love to leave our audience with?
There is a lot to media. It's not mysterious. It's an open practice, and it's a pillar of society. Some people call it the fourth estate, and I see it that way. So for some of us, it's a calling. Really, we just want to tell stories. However it is, say what the way it is, and we're also hoping that our stories will change the way people interact with things and all. But beyond that, I see myself as an entrepreneur. I don't see media entrepreneurship as in any way different from any other form of entrepreneurship. I might not be as rich as a fintech founder, or as influential as a manufacturer like Dangote, who determines how much we buy fuel on a daily basis. But in my own sphere, I've been able to create a business that has influenced how people receive information, how they process information. I've been able to create a business that has employed people, trained people, giving value to shareholders and members of the team. And going forward, I would want to have a system, or want to be part of a system that provides the mentorship opportunities that I did not have the opportunity to receive. Yeah, create a system where I can share that knowledge with other people, either in a classroom or through other teaching processes. And I think that is one thing that we've lacked here, that ability to engender continuity by knowledge. Most people don't hand over business to their children. Then there aren't spaces enough. Yeah, there are good places like LBS, Pan Catholic University, but there aren't spaces enough where new entrants into most industries connect with old entrants and learn the nuances of the trade and get a hand holding that would enable them to create bigger organizations. And I believe that one day we'll get there.
Yeah, we should and we'll get there. Thank you very much, David. It's been a very, very insightful, inspiring conversation. And just like you shared, I'll be hoping that we have more platforms and not just even, because this is like one example of a platform coming to share from your wealth of experience. We hope and we know that people that maybe just starting out, or even people in business already, would have picked one or two things that they can like really implement and they'll see results from it. While we also hope that even on a national scale, we have more institutions that can come up and extend this knowledge. I saw someone posted recently that we should just that there should be a lot more knowledge production just for knowledge production's sake. Yeah, not because of how much we earn for creating that platform, but because we just want to do it to help the ecosystem, to help the country. And I hope that we're going to get it. Thank you so much,
Surely
David.
we'll get there.
It's been a very valuable conversation. I know that our listeners, whether on Spotify or on YouTube or anywhere you find this episode, must have found this episode valuable. Continue to bring top and amazing people doing cool stuff, great stuff to just have you inspired, educated, and point you to resources that can also aid your own amazing experience. We'll catch you guys on the next one.